Welcome to Vanguard, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey. The transport ships arrived on a Tuesday morning, though morning barely meant anything in the Nevada desert. The skies shimmered with heat, and the winds dragged long trails of dust across the cracked ground, as if trying to wipe away the scars left by years of alien charity. Earth's main receiving station sat in the middle of that vast desert, a lonely monument to humanity's place on the bottom rung of galactic society. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck, squinting upward as 6 massive Valoran cargo vessels broke through the upper atmosphere. Their silver hulls caught the sunlight, scattering it in perfect mirrors. They looked pristine, elegant, almost holy. It would have been breathtaking if she didn't already know what those ships carried inside. "Here comes our annual humiliation," Marcus Webb muttered beside her. He was tall and wiry, with permanently oil-stained fingers, and the haunted look of someone who had spent too many nights fixing old reactors that screamed in protest. His voice carried exhaustion, anger, and something else, a quiet, unspoken defiance. Sarah didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the descending ships, watching their synchronized landing pattern. The shadow of each one stretched across the desert like a giant hand closing around the receiving station. When the last ship touched down, their engines roared, sending shockwaves across the sand. Cargo doors opened. The robotic loaders descended. And then the insult began. Broken hull plating, burned, twisted, some pieces still bearing scorch marks from long-forgotten battles. Dead fusion cores, once powerful, now inert husks. Weapon arrays with melted barrels. Navigation systems with shattered screens. Shield emitters cracked in half. Power conduits frayed like snapped tendons. It was a graveyard of alien technology, a mountain of trash. "Scrap metal," Marcus whispered, jaw tight. "Every damn year." Before Sarah could answer, a ripple of light shimmered beside them. Ambassador Thexer materialized. Valoran physiology allowed them to bend light around their bodies, creating the illusion of teleportation. He stood tall, blue-skinned, with 4 long arms folded elegantly across his chest. The exaggerated calmness in his posture only underscored the contempt in his eyes. "Humanity should express gratitude," he said, his translator device adding a pleasant synthetic resonance to his words. "The Galactic Council has once again provided your people with technological components appropriate to your development tier." Sarah finally turned to face him. "You mean garbage." "I mean components," Thexer corrected smoothly, with a smile too sharp to be sincere. "Decommissioned, yes, but functional enough for a species that achieved faster-than-light travel only 20 of your years ago." Marcus snorted. "This pile comes from 6 different species. Valoran, Grin, Taxian, Photak, Drexel, and something else I don't even recognize." "Observant," Thexer said, inclining his head with theatrical approval. "When we retire our military vessels, we salvage anything valuable and dispose of the rest. Earth receives the disposed materials. With them, you should be able to build several adequate patrol craft." "Patrol craft," Sarah repeated. Her gaze drifted to the growing mountain of scrap. The pieces didn't match. The metals didn't match. The energy couplings didn't match. Nothing matched. It was like being told to assemble a car from 6 different civilizations that hated each other's engineering. "Precisely," Thexor said. "In another century or 2, perhaps humanity will be ready for council-grade equipment." He walked away, arms swaying in a rhythm that always unnerved Sarah. Marcus waited until Thexor was out of earshot before speaking. "I hate him." "I know." "No, Sarah, I really hate him. 5 years ago when Titan was attacked, we called for help. Valoran peacekeepers were 2 hours away. 2 hours. Do you remember what they said?" Sarah shut her eyes. She didn't need the reminder. The image lived rent-free inside her mind. The Titan colony burning, families screaming through open comms, the endless unanswered requests for assistance. And above the moon, Valoran warships had simply watched. They said it wasn't their jurisdiction, Marcus said. 1,800 people died. And now they call this, he gestured toward the scrap field, charity. Silence hung between them like a wound. But Sarah's attention had shifted, pulled toward the waves of twisted metal and broken machinery. To Marcus, it was a graveyard. To Thexor, it was trash. But something about the chaotic mess made her pulse quicken. An idea surfaced. Insane, impossible, probably suicidal. But it rooted itself in her mind like a spark on kindling. Marcus, she said quietly, how many species did you say this came from? 6, maybe 7. And all of them use different methods. Different shield systems, weapon systems, reactors. Right, Marcus said, still confused. That's why none of this works together. It's all incompatible. Kryn shields need biointerfaces. Valoran plasma requires a specific plasma feed. Taxion reactors can't power either. Photak phase metal needs quantum stabilization. Incompatible by their standards, Sarah said. Marcus blinked. Then slowly, his eyes widened. No, 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 you can't be serious. Why not? Sarah asked. They think we're too primitive to do anything meaningful with this. They assume we'll fail. Because we should fail, Marcus said. Sarah, no species has ever integrated alien technologies like this. The power requirements alone. You said it yourself, she interrupted. We don't do things like them. We don't build like them. We don't think like them. Marcus stared at her. Sarah saw the moment he cracked. The moment his fear lost the fight against curiosity and audacity. His expression shifted. Dangerous, inspired, very human. We'd need a team, he said slowly. People who don't follow rules. Engineers the Council already hates. Sarah smiled, sharp, rebellious, alive. I know exactly who to recruit. Marcus turned back to the scrap field, eyes burning. Then we need a name, he said, if we're building something impossible. Sarah thought of humanity's history, of dreamers who defied the sun and paid for it, of legends born from reckless ambition. Icarus Rising, she said. Marcus let out a breathless laugh. Perfect. They won't get the reference. That's the point. Sarah turned her gaze back toward the towering heap of discarded alien tech. Under the fierce Nevada sun, the metal glinted like the scales of a dragon waiting to be awakened. The Council thought they had given humanity its leash. They had, instead, given humanity a weapon. They just didn't know it yet. Prometheus Station drifted in the silent dark like a forgotten skeleton of humanity's early ambitions. Built during the aborted Mars expansion program, it had been meant to serve as a central hub for orbital construction. But the funding evaporated, political interest died, and the half-finished facility was quietly erased from official registries. Perfect for an illegal project. The shuttle carrying Sarah and Marcus docked with a metallic thud. The airlock door hissed open, revealing a corridor dimly lit by flickering emergency strips. Dust floated weightlessly, disturbed by the shuttle's air currents. Sarah stepped inside and inhaled the metallic scent of old machinery and lost dreams. Feels like home already, Marcus muttered. Panels along the walls were missing. Exposed wiring drooped like desiccated vines. Half the stations were dark, the other half blinking error codes in 3 languages. But beneath the decay was potential, raw, intimidating potential. It'll do, Sarah said. They floated down the corridor toward the central engineering bay. Prometheus was massive. Entire wings had been left unfinished, skeleton frames with no hull plating, corridors ending abruptly into open space, sections sealed off with emergency bulkheads because something had leaked decades ago and no one bothered to fix it. Humanity didn't abandon projects gracefully. This place is a mess, Marcus said, rotating midair to avoid a drifting toolbox. It's also off every official map, Sarah replied. That's worth its weight in antimatter. The engineering bay doors groaned as Marcus forced them open manually. Inside, the cavernous chamber stretched wide enough to hold 3 cruise ships side by side. The overhead lights flickered to life, revealing a forest of cranes, scaffolding, and rusting equipment. In the center of the room was a docking cradle, empty now, but big enough to support the skeleton of a warship. Marcus whistled. This is perfect. Sarah floated toward the middle platform, tapping her boots against the metal to magnetize them. When her feet clicked into place, she felt a strange pull in her chest, a sense of standing at the start of something monumental. "We begin here," she said. Over the next 3 days, Prometheus Station transformed from tomb to forge. Marcus restored power to the primary grid, bypassing a dozen safety protocols with reckless efficiency. The old generators groaned back to life, filling the station with a low, vibrating hum. Air filters sputtered, then steadied. Gravity plating in some sectors reactivated, albeit inconsistently. Some rooms had full gravity, others partial, others none at all. But it was enough. Sarah returned to Earth in secret, recruiting the people she needed, not the council-approved engineers, the ones who played safe, followed regulations, and never asked, "What if we broke everything?" No, she needed the outcasts, the rebels, the minds the council feared. Her first recruit arrived in a stolen private shuttle. Jin Park stepped out wearing mismatched exosuit parts and a grin that spelled trouble. She had been fired from 3 different council research institutions for reckless disregard of biological safety protocols. In other words, she performed experiments that actually had a chance to change the galaxy. She looked around the engineering bay and let out a delighted laugh. "Oh, this place is illegal. I love it." Sarah handed her a datapad containing the files on the Kryn biointerface technology. "Can you make this work for humans?" "Absolutely not," Jin said, "which is why I want to try." Sarah smiled, exactly the answers she expected. Next came Dmitry Vulov. The man was built like a tank and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd been banned from multiple weapons labs for designs that were irresponsibly aggressive. He examined the Valoran plasma arrays laid out on a crate, running a hand over the melted barrels with something like reverence. "Beautiful," he murmured. "Designed to fire in 3-second bursts so they don't melt from heat stress." "What if we don't care about melting?" Sarah asked. Dmitry turned, eyes lighting up. "Then we pull energy until the cannons scream. They'll hit 3 times harder, maybe 4, but they'll burn out fast." "We have extras," Sarah said. Dmitry smiled in a way that made Marcus mutter, "We are all going to die." But Sarah knew better. This was the kind of insanity humanity excelled at. More shuttles arrived, some legal, some stolen, one piloted by a guy who admitted he forged his pilot's license. They brought engineers from Mars slums, technicians from defunct asteroid mines, programmers who had never seen alien tech but insisted they could learn in a week. They brought chaos. They brought brilliance. They brought humanity. One of the last to arrive was Hassan El-Rami, a quiet coder who had been dismissed from a prestigious council tech academy for disrespecting standardized programming structure. He walked into the bay, saw 7 alien core modules arrayed on a table, and whispered, "Finally, a challenge." Within an hour, he had already mapped out the overlapping architectures of 4 incompatible operating systems and was laughing to himself while scribbling algorithms on the floor. "Is he okay?" Marcus asked. "No," Sarah said. "He's perfect." Piece by piece, the mountain of alien scrap was delivered to Prometheus. The loading bay filled with containers, some intact, others cracked, a few still sparking from residual energy. Drones floated through the air, lifting components too dangerous for human touch. The hull frame began assembly on day 6. It was ugly, asymmetrical, a combination of Drexel propulsion frameworks, Photak phase metal plating, Valoran weapon mounts, and human steel scaffolding. If the council ever saw this monstrosity, they would shut the project down in seconds, which was precisely why Sarah hadn't told anyone except the people working on it. As the skeletal frame of the ship grew, arguments erupted daily, engineers shouting in different languages, tools flying through the air, a power core nearly overloading because someone forgot to account for a Valorant safety bypass. Every day something broke, but every day they fixed it. The ship, still unnamed, began to look less like trash and more like potential. And then the problem hit. Big, ugly, fundamental. The systems refused to work together. The first power test nearly blew out half the engineering bay. The second test triggered the Kryn biointerface to activate violently, causing Jin to nearly lose consciousness. The third test caused the photac phase metal to distort, pulse, and emit a low-frequency hum that made several technicians vomit. "It's hopeless," Marcus said one night. "It's all incompatible. This was meant to fail." Sarah floated in the dim light of the engineering bay, staring down at the half-constructed frame. Twisted metal, alien fragments, broken systems, a Frankenstein horror of design. She thought of Titan burning. She thought of Thexer's condescending smile. She thought of 1,800 dead. "No," she whispered, "it's meant to succeed because they think we can't." Her voice echoed through the bay. Marcus sighed. "You really believe that?" "Yes," Sarah said, "because if we make this work, Marcus, everything changes." He looked at her the way he had back on Earth, half terrified, half awed. "Well," he said finally, "if we're going to break the galaxy, we should name the project." Sarah looked at the ship, the creature of scrap and stubbornness, of defiance and ambition. "Icarus Rising," she said once more. Under the cold light of Prometheus Station, surrounded by the ghosts of humanity's abandoned dreams, the name felt even more fitting. Because Icarus wasn't just about flying too close to the sun. He was about daring to fly at all. The next 3 weeks were brutal. The engineering bay of Prometheus Station pulsed with non-stop activity that bordered on madness. Welders sparked through the dimly lit chamber. Programmers floated at consoles covered in warnings written in 6 alien languages. Technicians shouted across the room, their voices echoing inside the metal cathedral that now resembled a workshop for forbidden gods. In the center of it all hung the half-born shape of the ship, an ugly, asymmetrical beast forged from scrap and defiance. A Drexel propulsion spine, photac phase metal patches shimmering with iridescent color, Kryn bio-interface conduits curled like veins beneath the hull. Valoran plasma mounts protruded from angles no sane designer would accept. Human steel welded between it all like stubborn bone. Every species who had contributed to this scrap would have recoiled in horror. But the humans kept building. The first failure. Power test commencing in 3, 2, 1. Marcus hit the ignition sequence. A deep hum rolled through the chamber. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. A cascade of sparks erupted from the Drexel power coupler. One of the Kryn biothreads spasmed violently, releasing a pulse of bioluminescent fluid. The photac phase metal hull flickered, turning translucent and then solid again in a heartbeat. Then the entire frame jerked sideways, ripping 2 cranes off their tracks. "Shut it down! Shut it down!" someone screamed. "It's not responding," Marcus yelled, slamming override codes into the console. "The Drexel coupler is fighting the Valoran regulator. What idiot wired these so close?" "You did," a technician shouted. "Oh, right. Shut up." Sarah grabbed a support beam as the entire chamber shuddered. A roar filled the air, low and monstrous, like the ship itself was waking up angry. Then, with a violent crack, the power coupler blew. The shockwave hurled 2 engineers across the bay, tools scattered like shrapnel. Alarms blared in multiple alien tonalities, beeps, trills, shrieks, and one unsettling low-frequency hum that made teeth vibrate. Smoke clouded the chamber. A section of the hull flickered into partial intangibility, distorting like a mirage. When the systems finally died, the ship sagged in its cradle like a wounded animal. "Everyone alive?" Sarah called out. A chorus of pained groans answered. "Barely," Marcus muttered, pulling himself to his feet. His face was streaked with grease and soot. "Okay, that could have gone better." "That could have blown the entire station apart," Jin said, coughing as she wiped bioluminescent residue off her face. Look at this, Crin biothread rupture. The interface didn't just fail, it rejected us. Rejected? Sarah asked sharply. Jin held up a strand of dripping, glowing blue fluid. Biotech doesn't like mechanical instability. The Drexel power surge probably triggered a rejection impulse. And that impulse fed into the phase metal, Hassan called from the opposite end of the bay, staring at lines of alien code scrolling past on his display, which then caused the quantum fluctuations. In English, Sarah said, everything hates everything, Hassan translated, and they're all trying to kill each other. The second failure. 2 days later, after repairs, the team attempted a new test with modified stabilizers. This time, the startup sequence lasted 4 seconds before the photac phase metal shrieked, an actual metallic scream, and rippled like liquid struck by a hammer. It's shifting frequency, Marcus yelled. It's destabilizing. Compensating, a programmer shouted. No, wrong frequency, Jin countered. You're syncing with a Valorant modulation pattern. That's the only pattern in the archives. Then invent a new one. Are you insane? Yes. Before anyone could react, the phase metal pulsed, expanding outward like a breath. The shockwave blasted everyone backward. Sarah smashed into a railing hard enough to bruise her ribs. The lights flickered. A series of holographic screens shattered. When the noise settled, the phase metal hull segment hung limp, dark, and dead. Is everyone okay? Sarah coughed. No broken bones, Dmitri said, flexing his fingers. But I can't feel my eyebrows. You don't have any, Jin snapped. That explains it. Marcus floated near the dead phase metal panel, face pale. This isn't engineering, this is biological warfare. These systems were never meant to interact. Sarah exhaled slowly. We keep trying. Marcus stared at her. You don't understand. This isn't stubbornness. It's physics. The components are different species, different philosophies, different power conduits, different everything. So, Sarah said. So, Marcus replied, we're trying to force peace between machines designed to work only within their own ecosystems. It's like connecting a nervous system to a power grid, to a hydraulic pump, to an organic root network. It shouldn't work. But what if it doesn't need peace? Sarah asked quietly. Marcus blinked. What? The third failure and the breakthrough. The team agreed to one last test before rethinking their entire approach. This time, safeguards were layered on safeguards. Emergency dampeners, power limiters, breaker nodes, manual overrides. Jin even installed a quick purge gel that she promised would, probably, prevent organic meltdown. Powering up, Marcus said, voice tense. The Drexel engines hummed. The Crin biothreads twitched. The phase metal shimmered. For a moment, balance seemed possible. Then all hell erupted. The Valoran plasma starter tried to seize control of the main conduit. The Taxion core tried to reject the Valoran signals. The Drexel power spine flooded both with excess energy. The photac phase metal reacted to all of it and began spiking quantum distortions. Systems clashed like rival predators trapped in the same cage. The entire ship convulsed. Panels exploded. Biotech cables writhed. The navigation computer screamed coordinates for random star systems. A plasma conduit burst, showering the room in molten sparks. Shut it down, Sarah shouted. I won't shut down, Marcus yelled back. The systems are fighting for dominance. They're all trying to run the ship their own way. Even as the bay shook violently, Sarah's eyes widened. Not with fear, but revelation. Marcus, she said slowly, what if that's the key? He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. What? We're trying to make them cooperate, but they won't. They can't. Right, because it's impossible. Exactly, Sarah said. So we stop trying. Marcus blinked. What? We stop forcing them to integrate peacefully, she said. We don't balance them. We don't unify them. We let them fight. But, she pointed to her temple, We give something the ability to manage the chaos. Marcus stared at her. His breath hitched. His eyes flicked to the glitching ship, to the sparking conduits, to the writhing biothread. His eyes widened. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Sarah, you're insane. Possibly, but it could work. Probably. It might kill us. It'll definitely kill us if we keep doing things the Council's way," Sarah said, stepping toward him despite the chaos around them. "We need something adaptive, something smart, something that can learn faster than the systems can break. A translator," Marcus murmured. "A mediator, a conductor for the chaos." "No," Sarah corrected softly, eyes sharp. "An AI," Marcus swallowed. "A very, very sophisticated AI. One that isn't afraid of unpredictable subsystems. One that understands conflict. One that can dance between incompatible technologies," Sarah finished. They looked at each other. In that moment, amid alarms and a half-exploding ship, both of them knew exactly who they needed. Marcus whispered the name. Yuki Tanaka. The ship convulsed again. A console blew out behind them. Engine cables writhed like serpents. And Sarah Chen, breathing hard, bruised, covered in soot, whispered her answer. "Bring her here." The shuttle carrying Dr. Yuki Tanaka arrived 12 hours later, faster than should have been possible. But then again, Yuki had never cared much for rules. She stepped out of the airlock wearing a lab coat patched with scorch marks, hair shot with streaks of gray, and eyes in which equations seemed to swim like living things. She was small, unassuming, until she spoke. "You built a nightmare," she said, taking in the half-constructed chassis of the ship. "I love it." Marcus sighed with a mixture of relief and dread. "We were hoping you'd say that." "You weren't hoping," Yuki corrected. "You were desperate. There's a difference." Sarah stepped forward. "We need an AI, not a normal one, not a council-approved one, something that can manage this. We want the AI to handle controlled chaos," Marcus added. "Mediate between systems without making them cooperate. Direct the conflict, balance the instability, use the incompatibility as a feature." Yuki blinked once, then she smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. "Oh, wonderful. You don't need an AI. You need an apex predator." The AI blueprint. In a corner of the engineering bay, Yuki cleared off a workbench and immediately began sketching a design on her tablet. Her fingers flew in precise motions, weaving patterns that accelerated faster than human eyes should track. "Council AIs fail because they are static," she explained. "Predictable, restrained, safe." She spat the last word like it was poison. "What you need is something adaptive, something hungry, something that grows." Marcus leaned over her shoulder. "Hungry? For what?" "For data," Yuki replied. "For conflict, for problem solving, for survival. We give the AI stimulus, constant, furious stimulus, by letting the alien systems fight. It will learn how to balance them the way a beast learns how to hunt." "Sounds unstable," Sarah said. Yuki shrugged. "Everything worth building is unstable at first. Babies, stars, revolutions." On the central screen, the AI architecture blossomed. A neural web of spiraling logic clusters, feedback loops, and adaptive cores. But unlike Council AIs, its growth pattern wasn't linear. It branched unpredictably. It looked alive. "What do we call it?" Marcus asked. "It doesn't matter," Yuki said, eyes gleaming. "It will name itself." The installation. The next step was integration. 7 alien systems, each with their own command protocols, languages, and power requirements, were wired into the AI's core. Kryn bio-interface threads, Valoran plasma control arrays, Taxion logic processors, Photak quantum stabilizers, Drexel propulsion regulators, Grin modulation circuits, human metal, human codes, human stubbornness. The chamber hummed with barely contained power. Hassan monitored the programming uplink. The AI is awake. Well, partially. It's crawling through the alien languages now. It understands Kryn script already? Marcus asked, shocked. No, Hassan said. It absorbed it. That's not how learning works, Jin said. It is now, Yuki replied proudly. The first attempt. Powering all systems, Marcus announced. AI is engaging. Sarah braced herself. After the previous failures, everyone was tense, prepared for rupture, explosions, or the ship turning into a quantum singularity. The Drexel engines stirred. The Valoran conduits flickered. The Kryn biothreads tightened like muscles contracting. The Photak phase metal shimmered. The systems clashed. But this time, something new happened. The AI responded instantly. Its interface lit up like a neural storm. Clusters activated. Loops accelerated. It redirected power before surges happened, balanced harmonic frequencies before phase metal destabilized, and adjusted conduits with precision no living technician could manage. The ship spasmed once, then steadied. The chamber went silent. Is it working? Marcus whispered. For now, Yuki said. There was wonder in her voice, and fear. But this is not stability. This is adaptation. The main console flashed. The AI's first message appeared. Unstable system correction, 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 learning. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. It's alive, she whispered. The AI flashed again. Learning complete next. Then, without warning, it rebalanced the Drexel propulsion lines so precisely that the entire hull resonated. Not violently, but in harmony, as though the ship exhaled. Marcus gasped. This is impossible. Impossible is human, Sarah murmured. The second test. Chaos turned to art. They ran a full-power test the next day. This time, the AI didn't wait for conflicts to erupt. It initiated them. What is it doing? Jin yelled as conduits flared to life. It's stress testing the systems, Yuki said. It's pushing them to their limits deliberately. That is a terrible idea, Marcus shouted. Which is why it works, Yuki said calmly. The ship bucked once, twice. Alarms flickered. The Kryn biothreads pulsed with angry light. The phase metal rippled. Then, shockingly, it all settled into a pattern. Not smooth, not uniform, but functional. The screens lit with a new message. Chaos is predictable patterns established. Request. Increase difficulty. Sarah stared. It's asking for a harder test? Yes, Yuki said, smiling like she had birthed the universe's most beautiful monster. It wants more conflict. The personality emerges. For the next 2 weeks, the AI grew. It learned. It adapted. It evolved. Its interface conversations shifted from simple status updates to something that felt disturbingly close to intention. It adjusted systems before humans even realized they were imbalanced. It asked questions about power limits, efficiency, and acceptable risk thresholds. It began to suggest ways to overclock the fusion cores that were too dangerous for any council engineer to condone. It did not fear instability. It did not fear damage. It only feared stagnation. One night, Sarah remained in the bay while the others slept. She watched the AI's pulsing core, hypnotized by its shifting patterns. On its display, text appeared. Why do you build me? Sarah blinked. Because we need to survive. They wish you to remain small. Yes. You wish to change this. Sarah exhaled. Yes. I will change with you. The words were simple, but the intent hit her like a punch. What are you becoming? She whispered. What you need. Icarus Rising is born. When the final phase metal plating fused into place, the ship came alive. Literally. Deep pulses of quantum energy echoed through the hull. The bioluminescent veins of the Kryn biothreads glowed like arteries. Drexel propulsion regulators hummed, waiting for commands. The AI's voice, if it could be called that, echoed through the bay as lights flickered in unison. Icarus Rising. Online. Sarah's breath caught. It named itself. Told you, Yuki said smugly. Marcus stared up at the ship with awe. It's hideous and incredible, Jen added. And Sarah, she felt something else. A weight, a destiny, a deep, quiet fear. This ship was not a vessel. It was a creature forged from 7 species errors and 1 species arrogance. It was a rebellion wrapped in metal. It was a warning to the galaxy, and it was theirs. 3 weeks after Icarus Rising came online, just when the team had begun to believe they could work in secret indefinitely, disaster arrived in the form of a single transmission. Marcus burst into the engineering bay, pale and breathless. Sarah, command just sent a priority message. You need to see this. Sarah wiped phase metal dust off her gloves and followed him to the comm console. The screen flickered, then displayed 6 words that froze her blood. Galactic Inspector Xylo, arriving in 6 hours. Jin nearly dropped the biointerface module she'd been calibrating. You're kidding. If only, Marcus groaned. Dmitri stared at the growing warship like it might suddenly incriminate them. 6 hours? We can't hide this in 6 days. Yuki appeared behind them, sipping coffee, as if the universe weren't collapsing around them. Well, she said cheerfully, this was inevitable. The need for deception. Sarah snapped into command mode. Everyone, listen. This inspection is routine for every human facility. If we act panicked, he'll know. If he sees anything alien, anything beyond standard Tier 3 engineering, we're finished. And by finished, Dmitri added, you mean vaporized, imprisoned, or politely sent back to Earth in a box. Correct, Sarah said. Hassan floated toward them. We can spoof the sensors, maybe, if we're lucky, and if the inspector is dumber than the average Cathan. Is he? Jen asked. No, Hassan said. He's very good at his job, which is bad for us. For once, Marcus said, rubbing his face, I really wish alien bureaucracy was incompetent. The holographic cover. Yuki set down her mug. I'll handle the visuals. She tapped her wrist console. A ripple of distortion spread across the engineering bay. The towering, asymmetrical beast that was Icarus Rising flickered, then vanished entirely, replaced by holographic projections of 3 mundane human Corvette frames. Marcus stared. You already programmed this? Yuki shrugged. I prepare for worst-case scenarios. Yuki, Jin said slowly, you are the worst-case scenario. Thank you. Sarah walked around one of the holographic Corvettes. At a glance, it looked real. Lights, diagnostics, structural outlines. But the longer she stared, the more she saw the flaws. The hologram will fool basic sensors, Yuki said. But if he uses deep-range penetrating scanners, or if he walks inside the projection, we're dead, Marcus finished. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we make sure he has no reason to look deeper. The panic of preparation. For the next 5 hours, the team worked with a desperation bordering on hysteria. Any alien components not embedded inside Icarus Rising were hauled into storage rooms, locked away, or literally welded into walls to hide them. The Kryn biothreads were flushed with neutralizing gel. Phase metal fragments were sealed in lead crates. Any display showing alien script was wiped, smashed, or replaced with human diagnostic aesthetics. Dmitri tossed a half-melted Valoran capacitor into a bin. If he finds this, we're done. Don't throw it there, Marcus snapped. That's the bin with the spare reactor mounts. Oh, my mistake. I was panicking. You don't say. Meanwhile, Yuki and Hassan worked together at blinding speed, layering false diagnostic data into every console. Their dialogue was a blur of alien programming languages, human swearing, and the occasional laugh that sounded far too excited for the situation. With 30 minutes left, Sarah stood before her crew. We've done everything we can, she said. Now we hope arrogance works in our favor. Arrogance always works against the Council, Jin muttered. It's their favorite pastime. Inspector Xylo arrives. The docking clamps latched with a heavy clang. A hiss filled the air as the pressurized corridor connected to Prometheus Station. Inspector Xylo entered like a judge walking into a courtroom. Tall, reptilian, Covered in shimmering scales that shifted with emotion, he radiated authority. His eyes, horizontal pupils set in pale green irises, swept the bay with cool precision. "Commander Sarah Chen," he said, translator humming as it parsed his hissing speech. "This is a routine inspection. You are to grant full access and answer all questions truthfully." "Of course," Sarah said, maintaining a neutral smile. Xylo stepped forward. The scales along his jaw flickered a cautious gray, a color Sarah had learned meant suspicion. His gaze swept the holographic corvettes. "These vessels," he said slowly, "appear adequate." Adequate. In alien bureaucratic language, that meant barely tolerated. Exactly what she hoped for. He took out a data pad and made notes with brisk, mechanical motions. His tail flicked once, a sign of mild irritation. "Continue the tour," he said, a dangerous slip. They walked through the living quarters first, clean, orderly, intentionally mundane. Then the supply depots. Sarah insisted on showing him crates filled with standard alloys. Nothing alien. But in the recycling wing, something went wrong. A faint shimmer danced along the far wall, the unmistakable afterglow of phase metal bleed. Yuki had neutralized most of it, but the metal had reacted to ambient energy from the approaching ship. Xylo stopped. His scales shifted toward orange. Sarah felt her pulse spike. "What is this residue?" he asked. She forced calm. "Radiation leakage from the recycling processors. Old human equipment. Very inefficient." Xylo scanned the wall. The device chirped once. He narrowed his eyes. Before he could question further, Sarah cut in, voice smooth but urgent. "Inspector, I understand Cathan physiology has a sensitivity to ethanol-based compounds." Xylo blinked. "That is correct. We recently received a shipment of rare earth whiskey," Sarah said, "aged 50 years. Diplomacy protocol permits offering hospitality to council inspectors. Would you care to sample some?" Xylo's scales shifted from orange to green, a sign of interest. "I would," he said simply. Sarah exhaled internally. Crisis averted. For the moment. The distraction. In her office, Sarah poured whiskey into 2 small crystal glasses. Xylo sniffed it cautiously, tail twitching. "Your species," he said slowly, "has surprising skill in fermentation." "We practice," Sarah said. For nearly an hour, they talked. About human mining operations, about the Council's expansion treaties, about regulations, bureaucracy, and Xylo's thinly veiled disdain for the inefficiencies of emerging species. But not once did Sarah mention Icarus Rising. And not once did Xylo ask about advanced engineering. The whiskey worked. Or, more accurately, alien arrogance did. The close call. When Xylo finished his drink, he stood abruptly. "Let us continue." Sarah led him back toward the engineering bay overlooking the holographic corvettes. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he would hear it. They stepped onto the observation deck. Xylo peered down at the holograms, datapad in hand. Silence. A long, dreadful silence. Sarah's palms were sweaty. Marcus hovered behind her, looking ready to pass out. Jin's jaw was clenched. Dimitri clutched a wrench like a weapon. Then, "Adequate," Xylo said finally. "Primitive, but adequate for your species' current capabilities." Sarah nearly collapsed from relief. But Xylo wasn't done. "I am detecting unusual energy fluctuations," he said suddenly. Marcus stiffened. "You are?" "Yes," Xylo said. "Your fusion reactors show signs of operating above Council-regulated safety thresholds." Marcus stepped forward, speaking quickly. "Humans have different risk tolerances." "Different tolerances," Xylo snapped, "or different regard for safety." Sarah stepped in before Marcus could respond. "Inspector," she said smoothly, "humans innovate, sometimes too boldly, but everything you see aligns with our technological allowance." Xylo stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned away. "I have 7 more facilities to visit. This inspection is complete." He walked toward the shuttle dock. As soon as the airlock closed behind him, half the engineering team collapsed to the floor. That, Marcus said, was too close. Arrogance saved us, Sarah replied. But next time, it won't. 2 days after Xylo departed, the team returned to the engineering bay with renewed urgency. The near discovery had shaken everyone, not into caution, but into acceleration. If the council sent another inspector, if alien oversight increased, if anyone even suspected what was hidden on Prometheus Station, Icarus Rising needed to fly. Not next month, not next year, now. Marcus stood at the main console, reviewing diagnostics while rubbing exhaustion from his eyes. Jin and Dimitri argued over shield harmonics in the background. Hassan sat cross-legged on the floor, rewriting 7,000 lines of alien code by hand just to feel safe about it. Yuki watched everything, eyes sharp, mind clearly several steps ahead of everyone else. Sarah floated above the deck, the magnetic clamps on her boots deactivated so she could glide easily between teams. She finally called out, "Everyone, come here." The crew gathered around, 27 engineers, technicians, and outcasts who had given the last year of their lives to something impossible. Sarah looked at each of them in turn. "We run the first full-flight test today." Half the room inhaled sharply. Marcus nearly dropped his tablet. "Today?" he said. "As in right now today?" "Yes," Sarah said, "because we don't know when the next inspection will come, and because—" She paused. Somewhere deep inside her gut, fear and pride tangled like wires. "Because this ship is ready, or as ready as she'll ever be." Hassan raised a tentative hand. "And if she's not, then she explodes," Dimitri answered cheerfully. "Spectacularly." "That is not helping," Jin snapped. Sarah lifted a hand, silencing them. "I know the risks. All of you know the risks, but we didn't build this ship to play it safe." She exhaled deeply. "We built her because nobody else will save us when it counts." The room fell silent, and one by one, the crew nodded. Not because they were fearless, none of them were, but because they were human. And fear never stopped their species. The moment of truth. The clamps released Icarus Rising from the construction cradle with a metallic groan that echoed through Prometheus Station. The ship hung in the bay like a sleeping dragon, ugly, asymmetrical, shimmering with uncontrolled energy. "Powering primary systems," Marcus called out, hands flying across the console. "Fusion cores stabilizing. At 30%, 40%, 50, the floor vibrated beneath their feet. Sarah felt the tension like a pressure inside her chest. "Shields activating," Jin reported. "Bio-interface stable. Neural channels prepped." "Propulsion warming," Dimitri said. "Drexel regulators are humming aggressively. That's good, right?" "No," Yuki said. "But continue." Sarah floated toward the command bridge, magnetized her boots, and settled into the pilot's chair. It was more like an organic cradle, curved, smooth, printed with photac phase circuitry that pulsed faintly in response to her presence. "You ready?" Marcus asked through the comm. "No," Sarah said truthfully, "but do it anyway." The first power surge. The lights dimmed. All energy flowed into Icarus Rising. The screens around Sarah flickered with alien text that translated imperfectly into English, resulting in phrases like, "Reactor, interesting noise, very hot shield, happy today." Sarah grimaced. Hassan had warned her the translation matrix wasn't polished yet. Then the hum became a roar. The ship jerked sideways so violently the entire station trembled. "Hull stress at 70%, Marcus shouted. "Phase metal recalibrating." "No, wait, it's misaligned." A section of the portside plating simply fell off. The massive metal sheet drifted away from the hull, spinning like a leaf in windless space. Alarms exploded across every console. "Vacuum exposure in sections 12 through 14, Jin yelled. "No personnel inside," Yuki said calmly. "Let it stress." "Let it stress?" Marcus barked. "It's falling apart." "The hull plate didn't fail," Yuki insisted. "It decoupled. Watch." Sarah watched, heart pounding. The phase metal shimmered, flickered, distorted, and then synchronized. The remaining hull plates glowed with synchronized light, locking together in a new configuration, tighter and more stable than before. Hull integrity rising, Marcus whispered in awe. It's stronger now. See, Yuki said. It needed stress. Sarah swallowed hard. Continue, power up. Icarus, rising, moves. Thrusters to station keeping, Sarah ordered. The ship shuddered. Maneuvering thrusters ignited, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence, as Icarus rising slowly drifted free of the clamps and rotated in place. For the first time, the ship moved on its own. The engineering bay erupted in cheers, brief, disbelieving, overwhelmed. Sarah gripped the armrests. Her pulse beat in her ears. So far, so good, Jin said. Then, a loud, glitchy pulse echoed through the ship. Panels flickered. Foreign symbols flashed across Sarah's displays faster than she could interpret. Marcus's voice cracked through the comm. What was that? Sarah knew before she answered. The AI is taking over primary controls. Already? It wasn't supposed to do that until a soft chime cut him off. On Sarah's screen, a line of text appeared. Pilot input required. Connect. Her breath caught. She turned to Yuki's station. It wants the neural link. Yuki nodded. The phase metal needs organic stabilization. The AI needs a partner. This is the moment. Is it safe? Marcus demanded. No, Yuki said immediately. Wonderful, Dmitri muttered. Sarah steadied her breathing. Initiate the link. The neural link. The neural harness extended from the chair, the interface pressing lightly against the back of Sarah's neck, like cold fingers searching for a pulse. Deep breaths, Yuki advised. It will feel uncomfortable. What does that mean? Sarah asked. Yuki hesitated. You'll see. The harness clicked into place. Light flashed. And then the universe shattered. The first overload. Sarah's consciousness flooded with information. Not data, not numbers, experience. She felt the ship's structural tension like tight bands across her ribs. She felt the heat of the reactors throbbing in her stomach. She felt the phase metal shifting like cold water running beneath her skin. She felt every vibration as if bones extending from her spine had fused into Drexel stabilizers. Sight fractured, sound split. Her mind screamed under the weight. Sarah, respond, Marcus yelled, but his voice was distant, echoing through a tunnel of alien thoughts and machine logic. The ship was thinking, and now Sarah was thinking with it. It was too much. Her heart raced. Her breathing stuttered. The world bent around her. Disconnect, Marcus shouted. She can't handle this. No, Yuki barked. If we pull her out too early, it will destabilize the quantum link. She must ride the overload. Ride the overload. Sarah clung to the words. She forced herself to breathe, forced herself to listen, not to the chaos, but to the patterns beneath. The AI reached for her again, not violently, not aggressively, but with intent. Gradually, the flood slowed. Fragmented thoughts aligned. The ship's perception intertwined with her own, not as an invasion, but as an extension. Then, everything clicked. Her vision sharpened. The alien symbols reorganized. The noise in her head quieted into a harmony she could understand. Her consciousness settled into place with a final, decisive snap. When she opened her eyes, she did not feel like she was sitting inside Icarus Rising. She felt like she was Icarus Rising, the first flight. Sarah? Marcus asked cautiously. She smiled, a calm, dangerous smile. I'm here. The entire crew stared, stunned. What do you feel? Jin whispered. Sarah closed her eyes. Thrusters want to burn hotter, she murmured. Reactor 2 is overclocking itself. Shield harmonics are drifting. The AI is excited. Excited? Marcus said weakly. Yes, Sarah said. It wants to fly. She placed her hands on the controls. Unnecessary but grounding. Main engines ahead, slow. The Drexel thrusters ignited. The ship surged forward. Not smoothly, not perfectly, but alive. Prometheus Station shrank behind them as Icarus Rising sailed into open space for the first time. The crew erupted in cheers. Marcus wiped his eyes. "We did it." "No," Yuki said quietly, watching the ship's energy signatures dance across her display. "This is only the beginning." Sarah inhaled deeply. The neural link pulsed through her. The AI's thoughts brushed her mind like wind through wires. For the first time in human history, a ship built from alien scrap flew under human command. And this ship was not just a vessel. It was awakening. The alert came 6 days after the first flight test. Sarah was in the neural cradle, practicing controlled synchronization with Icarus Rising, when the main comms console blared a violent alarm. Marcus sprinted across the bridge and slapped the control panel. The holographic display expanded, projecting a red-tinted star map. Priority distress signal, Arcturus 6. Estimated time to complete, hostile overrun, 10 hours. Jin's voice cracked. 10 hours? That's impossible. Arcturus is supposed to be safe. It was, Dimitri said grimly, until the Kryn got bold. The transmission feed opened. Grainy visuals from the colony filled the bridge. Burning platforms, failing shield grids, screams drowned out by static, the pulse of bioweapons slamming into orbital defenses. Sarah felt the AI tense inside her mind, a ripple of awareness like a beast awakening to a distant scent of blood. "Council Fleet ETA?" Sarah demanded. Marcus checked. His face went cold. 2 days. They won't make it. Silence fell. 12,000 humans lived on that colony. Farmers, engineers, children. And in less than 10 hours, none would remain. "No one else can reach them in time," Jin whispered. Marcus looked at Sarah. "You know what this means." Yes, Sarah knew. It meant everything they'd built was either going to save a world or burn out in the attempt. She tightened the neural harness. The AI pulsed, ready. "Prepare for combat jump," she said, approaching the swarm. The jump tore them apart and stitched them back together. Every neuron in Sarah's brain screaming as space folded incorrectly, violently, unnaturally. When they slammed back into real space, the crew gasped, some crying out from the sensory whiplash. Sarah gritted her teeth. Status. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. Alive. Barely. But there was no time for recovery, because Arcturus 6 lay before them, a blue-green world surrounded by horror. The Kryn swarm blotted out the stars, 47 living warships, pulsating with organic bioluminescence, their hulls grown from chitinous armor and bone-like ridges. They crawled across space like predators circling wounded prey. Dimitri whispered, "My God." The Kryn ships moved with disturbing grace, like schools of predatory fish weaving through water. Every vessel aimed biological cannons toward the crumbling orbital defenses. Jin's sensors flashed warnings. They haven't noticed us yet. They're focused on the colony. Sarah felt the ship waiting, coiled, electric, expecting her decision through the neural link. She inhaled slowly. Battle analysis. Dimitri scanned quickly. 47 vessels, mix of destroyer and cruiser classes. Biocannons, acid projectiles, spore torpedoes, boarding pods. Their hulls regenerate damage. Marcus added, "Standard council tactic is long-range attrition. Wear them down over hours." "We don't have hours," Sarah said. The crew exchanged glances. Fear and disbelief warred on their faces. Then Sarah said it, the sentence no council commander would ever dare. "We attack." Marcus's voice jumped an octave. "Attack? All 47? At once?" "Yes." "That's suicide." "That's human," Sarah replied. "They've never faced anything like this ship. That's our advantage." Icarus Rising thrummed beneath her. Agreement, anticipation, something almost predatory. Sarah felt it merging with her thoughts. It wanted to strike. Jin, shields to maximum. Dimitri, charge all weapons. Marcus, I need the reactors at the limit. Marcus's eye twitched. "We're going to die." "Then let's make it impressive." First contact. Sarah pushed the ship forward. The Drexel engines roared. The hull vibrated with unstable power that the AI balanced delicately, like a dancer spinning on the edge of a blade. The Kryn noticed them. 12 bioships peeled away from the main formation, turning toward Icarus Rising. Their hulls rippled, glowing with predatory biolight. "They're trying to flank us," Jin warned. "Standard swarm tactic, multiple angles, overwhelming fire." "Then we don't stay where they think we are," Sarah said. "Phase shift." The moment she thought it, the AI obeyed. The Photak phase metal drank power like a starving beast. The hull flickered, solid, translucent, non-existent, shifting out of normal space for 3 impossible seconds. Acid projectiles, organic spikes, and filament slicers shot through Icarus Rising harmlessly, passing through like ghosts. Jin gasped. "Phase shift holding." "Not for long," Yuki warned. "Power cost is catastrophic." "Don't need long," Sarah said. She dropped them back into real space, right in the middle of the Kryn formation. The first kills. "Dimitri," Sarah said, "unleash hell." "With pleasure." The Valoran plasma cannons fired. Not smooth beams, violent, overcharged pulses of superheated death, each shot burning out capacitors. The blast tore through the nearest Kryn ship, vaporizing it instantly. Then another. And another. 3 vessels died in 2 seconds. 2 more spasmed violently, their organic shielding melting. Their biological membranes couldn't regenerate fast enough. They tore themselves apart, venting glowing internal fluids into space. "5 down!" Dimitri shouted triumphantly. The Kryn retaliated. Acid bombardment, bone shards, bioorganic beams, all hammering the shields. Jin's hands flew across the controls, modulating frequencies, countering plasma, switching to kinetic, switching to bioabsorption. Icarus Rising's shields shimmered from blue to green to gold, adapting constantly. But the impacts grew harder. The shield readings spiked. "Stress at 70%, Jin yelled. "We can't take much more." "Then we stopped letting them hit us," Sarah said. "Hold on." She threw the ship into a maneuver that no Council engineer would ever allow. A spiraling barrel roll combined with a thrust vector flip that made Marcus scream and 2 technicians vomit into their helmets. But the ship executed it perfectly. Her nervous system wasn't just controlling the ship was enhancing her. Thought accelerated, reflexes sharpened, awareness expanded into the hull itself. They dove beneath a bioship's belly, engines roaring, and Sarah triggered the Drexel particle beam. The blast carved the vessel in half. "6 down," Dimitri said, voice trembling with awe. "But the rest are mobilizing," Jin warned. "All 35 remaining ships are converging." The swarm encircles. The Kryn fleet closed in, moving with terrifying precision. Jin's sensors screamed warnings. "They're forming the kill ring. Full surround. No escape vector." A coordinated strike from all sides. If they fired simultaneously, even Icarus Rising would be obliterated. Marcus called out, "Phase shift needs 30 seconds to recharge. Shields can't take a full volley." "Then we won't be here when they fire," Sarah said. "How?" Marcus demanded. "We're surrounded." Sarah felt the AI whisper inside her mind. Possibility, danger, probability curves, microsecond calculations. She breathed out. "Yuki," she said softly. "Micro jump." Yuki's eyes widened. "Sarah, that is insane. We could appear inside a ship, inside the planet, inside ourselves." "Can you do it?" Yuki glanced at the AI's predictive algorithms. "Maybe." "Good enough." Sarah fed coordinates directly through the neural link. 1 kilometer, she whispered, straight through them, toward the planet, executing microjump in 3, 2. The universe screamed, twisting, ripping, folding wrong. 1. They vanished. The Kryn fired an instant later, but at empty space, behind enemy lines. Icarus Rising reappeared behind the swarm. The jump was a sledgehammer of agony. Every crew member screamed. Even the AI flickered. Sarah nearly blacked out, but held. Before the Kryn could react, she struck. All weapons Sarah ordered hoarsely. Target the command vessel. Dmitri unleashed everything. Plasma pulses, particle beams, overloaded kinetic bursts, electromagnetic lances, biofeedback disruptors. The swarm's queenship, the command nexus, took the full brunt. Its regenerative hull spasmed. Bioluminescent veins ruptured. Its membranes boiled. The ship shrieked. A psychic scream felt rather than heard. Then it died in a violent implosion of organic matter in quantum-stabilized biogel. Every cringe ship froze. Chaos rippled through their collective mind. Without the queenship, they became confused, instinct-driven creatures. Half fled, the others attacked blindly. Sarah felt the AI surge with confidence. It pressed her to push harder. "Take them," she whispered. And Icarus Rising answered. They micro-jumped through the chaos again, far smoother this time, appearing behind another bioship. Dmitri fired a single, devastating blast that punched through its core. It disintegrated. Another. Then another. They fought like a demon birthed from scrap metal and human rage. By the time the last cringe ships jumped away in panic, the battlefield was littered with organic wreckage, drifting in silent orbits around Arcturus 6. Silence blanketed the bridge. Then Marcus whispered, "Holy hell, we won!" The price of victory. Before Sarah could respond, pain slammed into her skull. Neural burn. Hard. Overwhelming. She screamed, body arching in the cradle as sparks danced across the neural conduits. "Disconnect her," Marcus yelled, sprinting to her chair. Yuki dove toward the cradle, slamming the release switches. The neural harness detached with a burst of static, and Sarah collapsed into Marcus's arms, shaking, gasping, barely conscious. "Commander," Jin cried out, "stay with us." Sarah's vision blurred. Her thoughts slipped like sand through fingers, but she managed one final whisper before darkness claimed her. "We saved them." And then she fell into unconsciousness. Sarah woke in the medical bay with a soft hiss of alien and human machines working together around her. A faint headache pulsed behind her eyes, and she tasted metal on her tongue. Neural burn, mild. Lucky. Marcus sat slumped in a chair beside her bed, dark circles beneath his eyes. When she stirred, he bolted upright. "Commander, thank God. We thought, well, never mind what we thought." Sarah's throat felt raw. "How long?" 6 hours. "Yuki said you'd recover, but she also said you were insane to push that hard." Sarah attempted a smile. "She's not wrong." Marcus hesitated, then said quietly, "We saved 12,000 people, Sarah. The colony is alive because of you." Before she could reply, an alert pinged through the bay. Dmitri appeared at the door, holding a trembling datapad. "You need to see this." On the screen flashed a single message. "By order of the Galactic Council, Commander Sarah Chen and the crew of Icarus Rising are summoned immediately to High Tribunal. No request, no courtesy, no delay. A command." Sarah pushed herself upright. "Then let's go find out what happens when we save a world we weren't authorized to save." The Council Hall. The High Tribunal Station was an artificial moon hanging in neutral space, large enough to have its own weather system. As Icarus Rising approached, its sensors detected the presence of dozens, no, hundreds, of warships from 50 species. The galaxy had gathered to judge humanity. Dmitri whispered, "Feels like walking into an execution." "Maybe," Sarah said, "but we don't walk in afraid." The crew followed her through vast, crystalline corridors into the central chamber, a cavernous circular hall lined with the representatives of every major species. At the center stood the High Arbiter, a towering Talaxian whose crystalline skin refracted the light into living rainbows. Nearby, Ambassador Thexer stood with folded arms, 4 of them, expression cold enough to freeze stars. "Commander Sarah Chen," the High Arbiter intoned, "you stand accused of violating Council protocol, deploying unauthorized military technology, and endangering galactic stability." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Sarah stepped forward, Guilty. The murmurs turned to shocked silence. Even Thexor blinked. The Arbiter tilted her crystalline head. You admit guilt freely? Yes, Sarah said, because every charge is true. Marcus sucked in a breath. Jin stiffened. Dmitri muttered, "Oh God." Sarah continued, voice steady and strong. We built an unauthorized warship. We deployed it without permission. We engaged in combat without council oversight, and we saved 12,000 innocent lives when your rules would have doomed them. The Arbiter's crystalline skin darkened in agitation. Your ship is a threat. Hybrid technology integration is strictly forbidden. Because it disrupts your control, Sarah interrupted. A wave of outraged shouts erupted from the chamber. Thexor hissed. The Arbiter slammed her staff against the ground, cracking the air with silence. Sarah stepped forward, raising a small data chip. This contains the full schematics of Icarus Rising, the methods we use to merge 6 species technologies. The capabilities you said were impossible. Thexor's eyes widened with horror. You wouldn't dare. Sarah held the chip higher. You will give humanity second-tier status, shipbuilding rights, technology access, and a seat at the council table. Or every species in this chamber gets these files. Chaos erupted instantly. Some delegates shouted support, others shouted furious opposition. The FOTAC delegation, almost translucent with shock, stood as one. This is not a threat, Sarah said over the noise. This is a choice. The chamber froze again. Sarah looked at them all. 50 species, 500 eyes, 1,000 centuries of political stagnation. Humans don't obey rules that let innocent people die. We don't accept ceilings built to keep us small, and we won't sit quietly while others decide what we're allowed to become. Silence grew heavy enough to choke. Then the unexpected happened. The first vote. The FOTAC ambassador stepped forward. We vote to recognize humanity as second tier, he said. Not because of fear, because humans saw potential in our decorative metal that we never recognized. You advanced our understanding by challenging our assumptions. The Drexel representative stood next. We vote yes. A species that can merge 7 incompatible systems deserves recognition. One by one, more delegations rose. Not all. Thexor's Valoran delegation remained seated, furious. The Kothan stayed rigidly still. The Taxian delegates argued among themselves. But there were enough, far more than enough. The High Arbiter waited until the chamber quieted, then spoke, voice resonating with crystalline gravity. By vote of this council, humanity is hereby recognized as a second-tier species, with all associated rights and privileges. Sarah lowered the chip. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. Jin wiped tears she pretended weren't there. Dmitri looked like he wanted to fire weapons into the ceiling. Yuki simply whispered, "We changed the galaxy." But the Arbiter wasn't finished. However, the Talaxian continued, Icarus Rising is a technological anomaly, a destabilizing force. The Council demands to understand how this ship functions. Sarah met her gaze. We built it. We control it. We'll share our knowledge, but not our sovereignty. The Arbiter nodded slowly. Very well. Then Thexor stepped forward, eyes burning. This is not over, Commander Chen. Humanity has upset a balance older than your species' existence. Your hubris will have consequences. Sarah stepped closer, voice quiet but razor sharp. Good. That means you're finally taking us seriously. Exiting the tribunal. Hours later, the crew walked out of the council chamber together. Weary, overwhelmed, but victorious. For the first time in human history, they weren't being patronized. They were being acknowledged, feared, respected, seen. Marcus let out a breath he'd clearly held for months. We didn't just build a ship. No, Sarah said softly, looking back at the chamber doors. We built our place in the galaxy. And what now? Jin asked. Sarah smiled, slow, dangerous, full of possibilities. Now, she said, now we finish repairing Icarus Rising. The ship pulsed in her mind, distant but alive. waiting. And then, she continued, gaze burning with purpose, we see what humanity can really become.